I know you wrote an article. Should wide receiver coach Chad O'Shea be on the hot seat in 2024?
Yeah, and I want to preface this. I'm not calling for anyone's job, but I think there needs to be an honest discussion about this organization's that they have a blind spot for drafting and developing wide receiving talent. And if you look at just at the league as a whole, the contracts are escalating. They're going up and up at that position. And you look at the stalemate you're in with Amari Cooper. What's it over? Years. Well, why don't we feel comfortable with him not being here next year? It's because you haven't had another wide receiver develop and show to be a viable threat. And then since 2020, the Browns have drafted 6 wide receivers. Only one of those has shown any linear year-over-year progression, and that was Donovan Peoples-Jones, who we all know hit a progression roadblock and was dealt to get an asset and make room for Tillman on the field. Now, people like to point to Anthony Schwartz as a knock on O'Shea. I don't do that. I just think that was a bad fit from the jump. I get why you did it. You drafted a player with elite speed, but there's certain things you can't coach. You can't coach a player's natural ability to track a football or their durability. So I don't put that on O'Shea. And besides, Schwartz was picked up by Miami. He hasn't got off their practice squad. There's a reason for that. He's a developmental player. The Browns took too big of a swing on him. But if you look at the 4 players you have right now, the 4 young talents, Cedric Tillman, David Bell, Michael Woods, and Jamari Thrash. One of those players has to identify themselves as a legitimate threat in this offense. You need to have progression, you need to have development. There hasn't been that. I think Tillman is certainly the leader in the clubhouse. He has size and physicality, and the rest of the room doesn't have that. But that was never my concern with Tillman. My concern is all between the ears. He's a physical specimen, but I just think that could get worse for him if he's not taken care of earlier this season because of the level of choice routes. That'll just expose his inability to be on the same page as a quarterback. So he needs to take the steps mentally. David Bell probably has the lowest ceiling, but the highest floor. And I think choice routes could suit him. But even if it just being where he's supposed to be, moving the chains, I think he can carve out a role for himself. But I think even if he does those things, you don't walk away from the season considering him a weapon. Michael Woods is facing an uphill battle, coming off a ruptured Achilles, a suspension. He's going to have a stellar camp to even carve out a role for himself to prove he's worthy of it. Jamari Thrash is the X factor. We only have college tape. We know he was a separator and a vertical threat. If he can get off to a fast start and prove to be that, I think you'd feel good about his prospects and a weapon you could use in his passing game. But if 2024 comes and goes and one of these 4 receivers don't announce their presence as a legitimate threat in this offense, what's more likely, that the Browns draft a 7th receiver to give to O'Shea to develop, or they get a new voice for the room?
That's a fair question. In defense of Chad O'Shea, and not that I need to defend him, they haven't spent higher than a 3rd round pick on him. And is it a factor of the offense? When you think about it, and I'm trying to remember guys in Minnesota that developed. Stefon Diggs wanted out. I don't really. During Kevin Stefanski's tenure there, was there somebody that really kind of developed and jumped through?
Well, he was only really the OC for one full year. And they were rich with talent, but I think that also points out another factor is this could be a drafting issue just as much as a developmental issue. But when you consistently pick players, like you said, the highest swing they've had is 74th overall, 3rd round pick. They've had 3 3rd round receivers, 3 6th round receivers, and a 5th round receiver. Well, when a GM is consistently drafting players in those mid to late rounds, you are banking on your coach to be able to coach these guys up to bring the best out of them. And we just haven't seen the type of development that we need to see to feel confident that we have a burgeoning weapon in the wide receiver room. We feel good about their potential, but the word potential means you just haven't done it yet. We need to see that in 2024.